Hello, 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 and welcome to SCOUTCAST, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL mode, and Gameweek 1 is in the books. I'm not going to lie, I went to Fest. I was extremely excited by the start of the FPL season, and what an absolute banger of a game to start us off as well. 4-2, Liverpool against Bournemouth, lots of controversy, brand new players scoring goals. A drama as well, with it coming back to 2-2 and then obviously 4-2 by the end. Absolutely brilliant way to start the season. And we've even got lots of people in the community with over 100 points. Nobody here though, unfortunately. Nacho, thanks so much for joining us again this evening. How did Game Week 1 go for you? Not in detail, but just, general vibes.
Yeah, I'm happy to brush over this game week absolutely for myself. Yeah, obviously we'll come on to points in a minute, but as a Salah owner, like everybody, Friday was actually okay, and every game that passed just started to get a little bit more difficult. So I love this. I love this kind of first pod. We've had the pre-season ones. This is kind of the first proper pod of the season where we've just got one game week worth of data. We can't come to conclusions, but this is usually my favorite because we can make some claims early on that we can kind of have some strong thoughts about. So I'm looking forward to discussing what I think is a really interesting start with some big players scoring, like Erling Haaland is shaking up the pack already.
Yeah, big time. And I'm loving the fact we've got 3 green arrows on the screen. Probably quite generous to give us green arrows at the beginning of the season. But does that mean officially I'm now on 11 straight green arrows? So I'll take it.
God.
Hibbo, obviously you're back with us this season. Loving the fact that you're here with us today. How did your first week go?
We talked last week, and Game Week 1 side's super stressful for me, and we have weeks to fix our team. But I was making transfers up until including past the deadline on Friday. So the game, I think everybody knows the website's not in the best condition at the moment. I was tinkering with my team at about 6:30 on Friday night. I was eating a chicken burger at the same time, and I decided to make some transfers, and I thought, this game's locked. These aren't going to go through.
Rock and roll lifestyle, this.
So I had 3 transfers made. I pressed submit transfers. The team flashed on the screen, and I thought, have they gone through? Have they not gone through? What's my starting lineup? So you'll see that when we get to looking at our teams and their points and stuff like that. Interesting story for Game Week 1. But no, I'm looking forward, as Nacho said. The data's the data. It's a 1 game week sample. There's very little I think that we can glean from that. But I think we've seen Reinders, we've seen Anderson in action, and there might be a bit of an idea about maybe what the meta is, I think.
Don't you go jumping the gun yet, Hibbo. We're going to be talking about all of that. Don't you worry. I do love the image, though, of you sat there like Ben Stiller at the end of Dodgeball, screaming at the TV with your phone in your hand, having made your transfer but not knowing if it was gone through. Right, we've got a big stream for you tonight. We're going to be looking at our points because we want to see how we got on in Game Week 1. We've got a knee-jerk reaction wheel. That's right. For the first time ever, the knee-jerk reaction wheel. We're going to be looking at what conclusions people have apparently made after Game Week 1 and whether those conclusions can bear fruit or not, or whether we think they're just full of poop, basically. Then we're going to be having a look at the hop-on and hop-off fixtures. Going to be looking at some XGI tables. Remember, just like Nacho said earlier, this is 1 week's worth of data. You cannot glean anything or much from 1 week's worth of data, but we're still going to have a look anyway, and I think some bits will surprise you. We're going to be looking at CBIT. We're going to look at CBIRT as well, for people that don't know what that is. That's contributions, defensive contributions from defenders and midfielders, because it's very new this year, and we need to start looking at some patterns to try and help us see if there's any bargains in midfield and defence. We're also going to be looking at some of RobT's data to project what we're going to be doing next week. We've got our bus teams, we've got the community teams as well, because remember there are 2 of them. One community team did very well. One community team maybe wants to forget about Game Week 1 very, very quickly. And then we've got a Q&A at the end as well. Thank you so much as well to all those people that are in the chat that are already there. We've got Ball is Round. We've got FPL Lard, Tony D, FPL Chai, evening mate. We've got Honest FPL. Delia is in the chat. Lovely seeing you on Friday, Delia. And also, let me know in the chat if you were there at Fest and you came and spoke to me. If I don't remember, I do apologise. I'd had a few sherbets by then. So thank you so much for all those people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were pushing past me to get to Az. But thank you so much for all those. If you did come and talk to me, that's lovely. But let's get started and let's have a look at some points. So I finished this week on 60 points. I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite happy with 60 points. 2.8 million overall rank, which remember is just a game week rank because we're only 1 week in. I had Sells in goal with 2 points, Porro with 6, Murillo with 2, 8 Nori with 9. 8 Nori getting a bonus point and defensive contributions. And he didn't just make it, he smashed defensive contributions. Was not expecting that from 8 Nori, but 9 points I'll be happy with. Anderson didn't get defensive contributions. He was 1 away, but still got an assist. A beautiful assist for Chris Wood as well. So 6 points from him. Salah as captain. I think they've swapped around the images there. Salah was my captain with 16. Some would say he was lucky right at the end there against Bournemouth. Palmer with 3 points. Wirtz with 2. Reinders with 10 points. Goal and an assist. No bonus. And he did get booked as well. That could have been even more from him. Pedro and Watkins with 2 each. I did have Richards on my bench with 6 points. Wasn't expecting a clean sheet against Chelsea. Steve with only 1 point. Didn't do themselves any favours there against Spurs. And then I had Gu, who didn't play at all, and Dubravka, who got me 2 as well. So 60 points, I'll take that. 8 Nori and Reinders, definitely the 2 heroes there. Took a bit of a plunge going Reinders and Anderson in midfield, but I tell you what, for the first time ever, I feel like I might be a little bit ahead of the curve there, having my 2 5.5 million midfielders in Anderson and Reinders. Reinders being just a steady guy, and Reinders, who I wanted to begin with, because I could just see that he could go on a real upwards trajectory, and he's already gone up in price. So, yeah, there we go. Not too bad. 60 points, 2.8 million. And as me and Hibbo were discussing before we even went live, if I finish top 3 million every week, I'm going to win FPL. So there you go. That's on the cards, boys. Nacho, not as good for you, but your defence came up trumps.
Yeah, really late decision on the defence, actually. So I'll just read out my team and then a few thoughts about it in general. So 52 points, as we all say, it's almost a bit embarrassing, people starting strong. You know, like you boys, I just think it's a bit childish. So I'm happy to take the plunge here a little bit and have a bad week. So I'll be that guy, the usual Kelly Holmes, as I told you last season, and I'll bring it. Yeah, I'll bring it in late. So Sanchez in goal, kind of always locked in. After them quotes from Nuno, obviously they were completely lying about the fact that they were massively undercooked going into game week 1. I was a little bit put off by going for double Forest defence. So Sanchez between the sticks, double Spurs and Pedro Porro and Van de Ven with Murillo, just chasing the upside with the defensive contributions. Obviously didn't come in this week. Then I went for midfield 5 with Dewsbury Hall, Salah captain, Palmer, Rodgers and Bruno Fernandes with João Pedro and Watkins up top. To be honest with you, I think the Rodgers news was the thing that really threw my team, because I always wanted Rodgers in my team when we had the first 2 pods, I believe. But then he got injured in the 3rd pre-season game and kind of threw everything off. When we had the news that he was officially back, the moment Unai Emery said that he was ready, I thought to myself, I kind of want him in. We know where the goals are coming from in this Aston Villa team this season. Unfortunately, there were no goals in the game, so we didn't really get to see that. So I'm happy with the team in itself. I think double Spurs defence is basically there for game week 1 and game week 3, and anything after that is a bonus. I think they rotate quite well. Pedro Porro will be one of those that features in all of the games effectively. I'm not panicking. Obviously, I went for Rodgers as opposed to a cheaper midfielder, but I do believe in him and Aston Villa, so I'm happy to hold them for the next few weeks. The big miss for me is going all the way down to a 5 million in Dewsbury Hall. Just seeing Renders, seeing Anderson pop off and knowing I got nothing in the bank means that I have no route to get there early on. So a little bit annoying, but all in all, it's a fine game week.
I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Just move Bruno down to Reinders, you'll be fine. Absolutely fine. And Hibbo, let's have a look at yours. Top score across all of the Scoutcast community this week.
Top score and quite an embarrassing starter on defence. So anyway, I've got Sanchez, 8-pointer, because he got a bonus later on. Porro and Romero double clean for Spurs. Agbadu. So basically what I did is I made transfers right on the deadline. And my transfers were Watkins, Thiago and Agbadu, and for Murillo, Mateta and Strand Larson. I got this really crazy Watkins FOMO at the deadline, and I didn't have a chance to basically bench Agbadu because the team locked. So anyway, midfield, we've got Judge Reinders. I've got Salah, captain, Palmer, who obviously blanked. I don't know if he knows how to score an open play goal for Chelsea in the Premier League anymore. Fernandes blanked, Wirtz blanked, Watkins blanked, and Thiago scored a goal. And then the bench is a very kind of familiar Dubravka, Anderson, Gui, and Steve. Overall, pretty happy. My changes around at the deadline were mainly focused on Watkins FOMO, but also kind of the price point. You know, I think we talked about this in pre-season about having a striker who was roughly about 9 million because you had the potential to move to Gyökeres, but you also had, I think, the potential to come down in price and strengthen the other parts of your team. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I look at your team, but Andy, and I get a wee bit jealous because I think the 5.5, 5.5, like my main takeaway, and I don't think we can have opinions, I think, from game week 1, but I think in statistical takeaway we're not going to glean much information. But I think looking at your team and having Anderson and Reinders, the two 5.5s, mean I can effectively say bump Gui up to a playing striker or slightly improve my defence if I like moved Wirtz down to say Anderson. And like looking at Anderson, he got the assist. He was very close to DEFCON. I think he got 11 defensive actions and he needed 12. He could be the player, and I think we knew in pre-season from looking at last season's data that he was particularly good. So that's my main, I think, learning from game week 1, that I've really tipped the balance in terms of Salah, Palmer, Fernandes, Wirtz and Watkins. That's very expensive. Moving one of those down could fix that, and it could fix me non-playing GUI and also upgrade me defenders a wee bit slightly. And I think that could be important when it comes to bench boosting. I think early doors, having that kind of balance or flexibility built in. But no, 61 points. Leader of the Scoutcast for now. I'm happy, you know, like I think there's been a lot of doom and gloom around the community about, game week 1 ranks and where are these content creators ranked and all. It's the stupidest conversation I've ever heard in my life. Like, you know, do you know what I mean? And we spoke about it before we came on air. Like, if you came 2.6 million every week in game week rank for the whole season, 38 weeks, you realistically would probably win a FPL. But people are looking at snapshots of game week ranks and saying, this is terrible. Like, you know, these guys need to improve. These are grifters. Come on.
Yeah,
Come
I mean,
on.
we're just going back to Anderson quickly, by the way. He was obviously billed as being the boring pick. He was so exciting to watch in that game.
He was good.
He was everywhere. It was great.
He could have had
watching.
2 assists.
Yeah,
He could have 2
genuinely,
assists.
he was really, really good to watch. So I'm glad he actually came through and did quite well. Now, the thing is, and people, you know, you've just mentioned there about overall ranks, and there are even people in the chat tonight that are making assumptions really, really quickly after one game week, and you can't really do that in any aspect of sport or any kind of aspect of anything really, but we love doing it. So what we've got here is we have got the Wheel of Kneejerk. That's right, the Wheel of Kneejerk. So I am going to spin the Wheel of Kneejerk, and whatever it lands on, we're going to briefly talk about to see whether that Kneejerk is correct or whether it's not, or whether we should act on it or not, basically, because a lot happened in game week 1. So I'll try and go to both of you each time, but it depends how much time we have because we've got a lot of data to go through as well. So let's have a quick spin of the wheel. And by the way, if you're in the chat, and we've got, I think, almost 400 people in the chat at the moment, chuck us in what you think as well. So we're going to spin the wheel. I'm not going to tell you what's on there yet because I want it to be a nice surprise. Let me know if you can hear it as well. So we've got the first, here we go. So the first one on the wheel is Man United will be great. Somehow, and this is, I'm a United fan, I'm not going to get too excited. Somehow we managed to lose 1-0 at home, first game of the season, and it's the most optimistic Man United fans have been in a very, very long time. Players like Cunha, Mbumo, Sesko came on, Bruno looked good, Dorgu looked good, and all of a sudden we're thinking we could start picking Man United players in our team. Nacho, are we knee-jerking our reactions here to Man United? Is this just another false dawn?
No. It's not a false dawn. Whenever you replace Garnacho, Højlund and all with Cunha and Mbuemo, you're always going to get a better team. However, if you play Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro or Ugarte alongside him, you ain't winning games every single week, unfortunately. So go to a 4-3-3 and you're good. But while he maintains this double pivot with Bruno Fernandes, you ain't going to control games all the time is my problem. So yes, you are going to score goals. And I do believe that Cunha and Mbuemo are going to be fantastic options. But are Man United great? I think the answer is no. But I think they are definitely on radar as fun picks this season rather than the horridness that you were last year. I think there's some exciting picks. at good prices, and maybe actually better value than Bruno Fernandes. Maybe.
I like it. Hibbo, any quick comment before we go on to the next one?
No, I thought Man United were good. I think he's probably need a new goalkeeper because Altay was terrible for the goal. Like, you know, and I think Arsenal knew it was a weakness because they were putting it on right on top of him. And look, he obviously doesn't fancy Onana. And if it's a flip between Altay and Tom Heaton, I think you go and buy a new goalkeeper.
Yeah, big time. I'm tempted to just put Nacho in goal, to be perfectly honest. I think he could do a lot better than anything we've had before.
Nacho.
I'm going to say it now. I'm going to say it now. I think there are going to be some weeks where you can pick these United midfielders, like you just said, not Bruno, and I think it could be quite good. I think we're going to blow some teams away, but we're also going to be awful at times as well. So we'll see what happens. Next one then. So let's remove that one. And let's move on to the next one. Here we go. Spins a wheel. We love a wheel. Here we go. It is... Oh, here we go. Look. Hibbo, this is going to be on to you, and then we'll go to Nacho, because obviously he doesn't have him. Reinders is going to be Gundogan from 2021, when Gundogan scored about 17 goals, I think it was, in the league. Can Reinders do that? I mean, he's 5.6 million now, Hibbo. Sure, basically, the question is, are we knee-jerk in saying that we should have him in our teams now?
It feels a bit knee-jerky. I own him. I'm happy to own him. Is he going to score 20 goals? I don't think so. But look, I watched the Man City Wolves match in full, and I thought it was interesting because he was a one runner. Like, you know, he was playing like an 8, but he was getting up beside Haaland and support the Haaland in attack. And Oscar Bob obviously played very well as well in that game. At the moment, I think he gets a wee bit of stay execution in the team because Rodri, there's some quotes from Pep, they basically say, look, they just have to make sure his knee's right, you know, so they're going to have to build him up. They're going to have to give him training under his belt. And I think that's going to mean that Reinders stays on the team for a period of time. I think when he stays in the team, he's cheap, he's attacking. If the bad thing happens and he kind of drops out of the team, I think at the price point, it's not really any trouble, if you know what I mean. And I think if we're looking at Man City's fixtures over the next while, they're hugely fancied for goals. They're hugely fancied for goals this week against Spurs. So I do think he was probably a buy for people. Like, I know Nacho explained that he had Dewsbury Hall, who, you know, he's 5 million, he had no money in the bank, so he obviously couldn't make that transfer. But I think people that were in the position to move the Reinders, I think it was probably a good move. But do I think he's 20 goals? Nah.
What do you reckon, Nacho? You haven't got him. Are you kind of hating the fact that by game week 3 he could be 6 mil?
No, because it's still 6 mil for a Man City midfielder. I'm chill about it. I think he's underpriced. I'm chill. I think he's underpriced, and I personally, even though I'm seeing him going up, I'm fine. I'm fine. But no, honestly, I actually haven't felt that knee-jerk to bring him in. I think he's great. I think he's an unbelievable player. I think he is part of the best 11, but I don't think we need him for game week 2.
Nice. Right, next one. Let's have a look. I thought that was a big one, the Reinders one, because obviously he's been hot on everybody's lips. The next one then is... Oh, we're going to start... Yes, we are. We're going to start with, for Nacho then. Pedro's awful. 7.5 million, played 60 or 70. Went off, Delap looked quite good. Chelsea obviously struggled against Palace. Did we make a mistake going with Pedro?
Nkunku. This is Nkunku.
God.
I'm fuming at myself because pre-season, I have to clip it. I spoke about how Pedro will be a 70-minute man until Delap scores, and then the roles will reverse. And unfortunately, Pedro did have a chance, and he is a good player, and I do think he will start again in game week 2. But this is just one of those sort of things where the pressure's on now for Maresca. The narrative has changed a little bit, where no, we're not expected to win the league, but we are expected to finish top 4 now. And I don't think there's going to be times where he has nobody on the bench like last season with Nicholas Jackson. So I think João Pedro will now be 70, 65. And eventually, if he doesn't hit the ground again, I think Delap does come in for a few games. So no, I don't think he's awful. If you own him, you keep him. But I would say as soon as game week 3, if we see an early substitution once again in game week 2, as a good chance Delap starts in game week 3, I would say pull the trigger and get him gone.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Hibbo? You've been a Pedro fanboy for quite a while now. Do you think that's it for him? Do you think you're going to be looking to get rid in a couple of weeks?
Me?
Oh, sorry, no. Do you think people should be looking to get rid?
Well, I think what we talked about about Pedro in pre-season has come to pass. Last season he was 5.5 million with good minutes and pens. This season he's 7.5 million with worse minutes and no pens. So I think from the Club World Cup we kind of learned that there was a potential he was going to play 60, 70. And if he doesn't score in that 60 or 70, you're going to kind of beat yourself up and say, I should have a nailed striker here, because at the minute he's looking like he's not nailed. And I would imagine that people are going to have to jump off because, say, for example, Eze's maybe going to go to Spurs. It looks like that could happen. Yeah. You then have Matera on pens at 7.5 million, locked on, very good minutes. So there'll be better options out there. So I think people will be moving off in the near future, especially if he blanks in Game Week 2. People will panic and jump.
Yeah, I think you keep for West Ham, especially what we saw from West Ham in Game Week 1. But obviously, he's got to be someone you've got to think about, because a lot of people have nailed the rest of their picks. Right, let's have a look at the next one. People in the chat, by the way, are going, "What? It was only 1 week." Yeah, this is the Kneejerk Wheel. So this is exactly
I was going to say
doing it for.
We have to have some bits. Yeah,
exactly. Hibbo, Wolves, Burnley, West Ham all conceded 3 or more goals this week. Are they now the whipping boys going into this season?
Not really. I think promoted side Burnley, we were always kind of expecting them to struggle. Going up against Spurs, Game Week 1 wasn't actually the easiest. Wolves against Man City was a tough matchup. I'll be honest, I kind of expected a wee bit more from Wolves. But look, Man City are on their day, explosive, and can just tear anybody apart in the Premier League, and they look really on form. West Ham surprised me. I didn't expect them to be as bad as what they were. But will these teams be whooping boys every week? I don't think so. Like we saw Sunderland 1-3-0 against West Ham, wasn't it? Is that going to happen every week? Was that just like a kind of opening day good result? I don't know. I wouldn't nail my colour to these 3 being the worst teams. Definitely not. Like Brentford are bad. I don't think that should be underestimated in any way, shape or form. Like they were against Forest, and bar that late penalty from Thiago, they were losing 3-0 and they could have lost by more. So I think Brentford could definitely be in the mix as one of the worst teams.
I don't actually think Wolves were that bad. I think Strand Larsen was good, and I think they only conceded 4 shots on target and they all went in. So I think it's a tough one, and against City as well. But again, 1 week's worth. We'll see what happens next week. Nacho, this one's for you. I'm going to try and do just one each now, so otherwise we're going to be doing this till 11 o'clock. Oh yes, so Nacho, this one is for you. This is Ekatike is goals. Now the reason I put this in is because I'm going to ask you as well, if Isak doesn't sign for 8.5 million, is he absolutely gold? He's already done it in week 1.
Yeah, this is the thing, really. I think this is why it is absolutely perfect, the 2 games coming up for Liverpool, because I know he's being bought by everybody, but I think this is just great for everybody to watch, wait and see. They've got Newcastle up next, and then they've got Arsenal. I don't see a lot of goals in either fixture, and we'll know by then, really, whether Alexander Isak is joining Liverpool or not. Then in game week 4, Liverpool have got Burnley, then Everton, Palace and Chelsea. So we'll know right away then if Ekatike is going to be probably an 80-minute man. If that's the case at 8.5 million, I think a lot of people are jumping ship possibly on their Watkins picks and bringing in Ekatike for game week 4. So if you haven't brought him in already, I don't really think you need him for game week 2 and 3. Wait until the dust settles on this Isak situation, and then he could be FPL gold.
Yeah, nice. Next one's for you, Hibbo. We've only got 4 left. We've got, this is a nice one. Look, Hibbo, we were talking about this earlier. Overall rank matters right now. In your opinion, no matter where you are in your overall rank, does it matter or not right now?
No. Because look at our teams. I'm 2.6 million, 61 points. Nacho's 5 million, 52 points. It's just negligible right now, and I think we have this conversation every season. It comes up in game week 1 every season, and I think we have it in the first 10, 12, 14 game weeks where there's this kind of undercurrent in the community these days, which is they want to see content folks potentially fail, but every season they really nail their colours to the mast and say, these guys are finished and they've had a really bad opening week, and these are essentially bad players. Somebody's maybe going to start tracking Praz. I would say that's a terrible idea. If you look at his overall history over the last 6 seasons, the man's absolute. He's dynamite. He's gravy. He's gravy, as Callum would say. So don't look at game week 1 as a snapshot and think that this is any indicator of how like you're going to do throughout the season. You're going to have good game weeks. You're going to have bad game weeks. I think what we want as fantasy managers is we don't really want to bottom out. We don't want to have a 10 million game week rank because that would just be terrible. But I think if you kind of stay chipping away consistent, you have your plan, you stick to it, and your plan works out okay, I think we'll be grand. But I do think that some of the comments from like Praz and people around the community, they're spot on.
Yeah.
Let's judge this in 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 13 weeks.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, it's too early.
It's a sensible thing to do. Right, Nacho, we've only got 3 left. What's your next one going to be? I've got one. Oh, it's landed on the one I wanted for you as well. Because you've got Villa, double Villa attack. You've got Rodgers, you've got Watkins. They were easily one of the worst attacks in the first game week. I think Newcastle have never conceded so little XGC in a game in the Premier League or something like that. I saw the other day. So is that it? Villa attack bad? Should be selling Rodgers to Reinders now, shouldn't you?
Nah, I trust my boy. The great thing about Villa, and we saw it last season, is when Villa do score goals, it is kind of what Brentford were last season, where it was Vissa and Embuemo. I would like to think we're going to see that combination once again this season because they haven't invested in real top quality, and they got Brentford next. And we spoke about which teams are the whipping boys. Let's see in game week 2. If Villa do a job on Brentford, we come to 2 conclusions. Villa are okay and Brentford are terrible. And then after that, they have got Crystal Palace, who may have lost Mark Gay by then. I think you hold your Villa for now.
Yeah, nice. Hibbo, you've got 1 of 2 left. Here we go. 50% chance. Which one's it going to be? You're going to go with 5.5 mids are absolute gold and are going to prove to be the bargains of this season. What do you think?
They could be, and they feel like they could be the enablers for a full team, I think. Like, you know, I think we talked in pre-season at length about Anderson. The reason I didn't go with Anderson in the end was it looked like for us, we're going to sign a lot of players.
Yeah.
And I wanted that certainty. And I know Douglas Luiz looked as if he's signed, so I don't know how that impacts Anderson, if it does or not at all. But if he stays in the team, given what I can do in DEFCON, given what I can do in terms of the fact that they've bought a few more attacking players as well that he could potentially assist, I think he could be good. Reinders has obviously started very well. My only concern is outside of those two, how deep is the 5.5 pool? So you could change this to our Anderson and Reinders gold dust because I don't really think the depth beyond that is really there, but I think they could be okay.
Yeah, it's a shame not seeing Arias start. I thought he was going to start and he didn't start at all for Wolves to do so. And quite a few people are saying about a dinger as well. Just for posterity, mate, we're going to still spin the wheel for the last one.
Oh, look at that.
But, and it's a big one, has DEFCON changed everything? So people have now, they were talking about it in pre-season, they've now seen a game week where players got DEFCON points, got them 4 points, got them 9 points, whatever it was. Do you think that has now changed people's perceptions after seeing it live 1 week, that now people are going to be thinking about it more moving forward?
I think definitely each week that passes, when you actually own a player that you receive the DEFCON points, people are just going to become way more aware of it. Obviously, if you've been tuning into all preseason content, you'll know the extent of it and how it is quite important. But I think generally more people will recognize it. I think we knew the importance of it until we actually have that huge return, you know, like Bruno Fernandes could have had one more defensive contribution, a penalty, and all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, this is it really. So yeah, I think it has changed a lot. I think it makes defenders, like we've spoken about, even more viable and good options at 4.5, like we saw. We'll look at some defensive contributions later. So we knew this already. I think it's great. And if you can find those gems like in Anderson, who gets the assists alongside those contributions, then they're just gold, aren't they, really?
Yeah, they really are. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes on. And obviously we're going to be tracking that as the season goes on too. Before we go on to those, though, let's just have a quick look at the fixtures. So from game week 2, we've got the hop on, hop off matrix from Legomane, who is an absolute legend. You can find him over at Blue Sky. He's got his hop on, hop off matrix here. The big fixture, obviously, this week is arguably the biggest fixture this week, is Arsenal against Leeds at home. Everybody was ready to get on Arsenal assets this week. And obviously Leeds did not look too bad in Monday Night Football, but that is probably one of the bigger fixtures there. Bournemouth finally have a nice fixture in Wolves. They did score 2 goals against Liverpool, so what can they do against Wolves that just conceded 4? Burnley and Sunderland is probably one of the biggest fixtures of the weekend as well. Burnley at home against Sunderland, but Burnley got absolutely trounced 3-0, whereas Sunderland won 3-0. Nacho, just very quickly, just thinking about Arsenal, they've obviously got Leeds at home here, but they do have Liverpool away, City at home, and Newcastle away in the next 5 as well. I've seen a lot of people thinking about free hitting this week. Do you think free hitting's viable, or do you think it's better to just invest in those Arsenal players? Because we saw, we were supposed to be a tough fixture against United. Saliba walked away with 9 points. What are you thinking about Arsenal assets?
Yeah, I don't feel strong enough right now to say to myself, I have to pull the trigger on a free hit just to get 3 Arsenal picks, because I think it's quite difficult right now to actually get 3 that you feel confident about. I think Saka becomes a lock, but obviously we don't know exactly if he's going to be the penalty taker. Gyökeres, if it's another 60-minute appearance, then you're like, oh, is it really worth the free hit on someone like that? So I think you are doubling up on Arsenal defence for game week 2, possibly if you can't identify the 2 attackers. In terms of game week 2 in isolation, I'm not big on the free hit myself. I think unless you've geared your team up for game week 1 in particular and you've already planned the free hit, then yes, of course, go for it. But I've never looked at game week 2 and said to myself, I need a free hit here to target the fantastic fixtures. And Arsenal, after what I saw, I just don't see anything that I'm like, oh my God, I need 3 of these boys. I'm happy to roll the dice and have no Arsenal up until, personally, game week 7.
Yeah, I mean, is that the big thing that's after game week's gone, Hibbo? After game week 1 is now gone, does anything here kind of look different now that column isn't there? So, for instance, like I said, Arsenal now have Leeds at home. It's starting to look a little bit rosier. Villa still have nice fixtures. Everton still have nice fixtures all the way up to game week 11. Is there anything else that's kind of changed its complexion now looking at it with game week 1 gone?
No, I think fundamentally, like we were looking at, the first 6 weeks is probably a block anyway. The first 7 weeks is probably a block anyway. And we're only 1 game week into that, so I don't really think much has changed. Like Nacho's talking about Arsenal there. They obviously have Leeds this week, but then like Liverpool, Forest, Man City, Newcastle. I don't really like that at all. So I don't think I'll be jumping on buying, say, Arsenal players with transfers, and I don't really want to play me free hit this early, because although you can load up with the Arsenal players, like who else are you going to buy? We have a couple of Burnley players on around their teams anyway. They've got Sunderland this week. So, for me, it wouldn't really be the play. I'm planning to use a free hit on down the line a wee bit. But no, I think roughly fixtures are what they were at the start of the season. I don't think much has changed. And I think it's about holding your nerve despite the fact of what you think you might have saw in game week 1. Like we may feel that we've learned stuff, but I think ultimately our beliefs around team strength and how teams are in terms of attack and defence, they probably haven't altered that much based on 1 game week's worth of data. So I think we hold our nerve, stick to plan, and whatever we were planning to do in terms of chips or transfer plans, you just stick with it for now, I think.
Yeah, I do agree. And Nacho, before we move off the fixtures, just very quickly, because I don't think he comes up in my tables in a minute, Liverpool have got Newcastle away and Arsenal at home. Would you be slightly worried as a Verts owner right now?
It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult because you're looking at that game week 4 fixture, and if you've got your eyes on a wild card around game week 7, for example, which feels like the first kind of window that some managers are discussing, I think yes, Newcastle maybe are better than what we were all going into game week 1 thinking, but again, it's only 1 game week worth of information. But anything at St James's Park, we just have to assume is going to be a tough game. And then Arsenal, we're never anticipating Arsenal to concede more than 2 goals maximum. So yeah, I think you have to lower your expectations of Verts, but then you get to game week 4 with the Burnley game, Everton. I think there are going to be returns over that period, but I just think if I owned Verts, I would just keep him. I thought he actually looked okay at times, to be honest with you. He created some big chances. I just get it. When a big guy like him doesn't return, you kind of start to think to yourself, oh, should I just drop him down to a 5.5? But I would stick with him for now myself. But I, of course, don't own him.
Well, let's have a look at the XGI leaders then from this week. So remember, this is 1 game week. 1 player absolutely smashed it for XG this week, and it's not probably a massive shock as to who that was. Haaland got 1.99 XG in the game against Wolves, which is absolutely massive. Some players will be 10 weeks before they hit that. So 1.99 XG for Haaland. Ekitike was next with 1.16 XGI. Most of that was XG. Obviously had the nice one-on-one with the keeper when he scored. Wood, 0.96. We were all saying about Forest couldn't score any goals in pre-season, then scored 3 first game of the season. Semenyo, Calafiori, they were both around 0.92, 0.93. Jaden Anthony at Burnley, interestingly, 0.36 XA and 0.44 XG, so combined 0.80 XGI. Richarlison was up there. How do you say his name? Estavio? How do you say it, Nacho?
I'm so bad at pronouncing. I call him Estevao, but
Estevao. I need to look that one up. He was very good when he came on. 0.71 XGI for him. Anderson, 0.67 XGA. Go on, my boy. Gibbs White, Gakpo, Kudus. These are all above 0.59 XGI. Alanga, Van der Ven, and Rico Lewis as well, who got a surprising start. Now, looking at these, again, this could be the knee-jerk stream, couldn't it? Because obviously it's only 1 week's worth of data. Hibbo, anything here that absolutely shocks you in terms of how much they contributed in terms of XGI? And is there anybody here that's straight on your watch list because of what happened?
It's cliche, but like Haaland obviously smashed it. Yeah. You know, we looked at his performance against Wolves. I think he had 6 shots in the box. I think he had 3 big chances. You know, scored the 2 goals, actually missed 2 big chances. So there was a chance that he could have gone bigger. And I think if we look at Haaland in his first 2 seasons, he's been very quick off the mark. You know, he comes back fresh from the summer and he starts particularly well. He obviously last season went off the boil with a bit of injuries, kind of mid-season and towards the end of last season. But we didn't really consider him, I don't think, in our starting teams, and I think the vast majority of the player pool in the FPL didn't really consider him because of how much Salah did in terms of production last season. It would have took a really brave manager to back against Salah and throw your lot down my hand. Going, we both felt a wee bit of a stretch, but I think it wasn't hugely surprising, but I think he delivered a reminder that, look, I'm here, I'm an asset, and I'm viable. Like, you know, like you can differentiate your team by like having just one premium player different. Do you know, like you can have maybe Haaland in the walk-on slot and drop Salah down to somebody else, and suddenly your team looks very different to the majority of people in the game. So I think it's a reminder that he's here, he's an option, and Man City look sharp. I think they're going to score goals. I think they're going to win games, and he's going to be the focal point, as always.
Well, I mean, Nacho, tell you somebody who isn't on this list. It's a certain Egyptian king. Not Marmoush, he didn't even start. I'm on about Salah, obviously. Salah isn't on this list. Haaland reminding everybody what he could do. Obviously, 2-3 years ago, he had his wonder season, didn't he? When do people start thinking, oh, I might need to get Haaland in?
I mean, I get it in terms of people wanting to just suddenly go there. But firstly, you got to use 2 transfers, really. Everybody has to use 2 transfers to get there. So game week 2, I just don't like the idea of it. I know that there probably is more potential for Haaland in these next 2. Looking at them, Tottenham at home, yes, they probably are going to play that sort of system that they played against PSG, and they might be a bit tighter, but I think we anticipate Man City to get chances in that game, and then Brighton away in game week 3, followed by Man United, awful team, of course, and then Arsenal in game week 5. So I think right now, if you've gone for the Mo Salah route, you just stick with it. I think you just stick with it and you get yourself to game week 4, like we discussed, with Burnley away, and then you can reassess after game week 5. Then Man City have got Burnley and Brentford. So I think that is the time for managers to move away from Mo Salah in game week 6, whether it be a wild card or transfers that you stored in the bank, and let it be what will be with Haaland in these opening 6. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. Hibbo, Esteval, Elliot Anderson, 2 midfielders who can create and are putting up XG as well. Elliot Anderson, we know, was also good for DEFCON. We seem to be kind of spoiled for choice with these kind of middling midfielders. Even Kudus, by the way, who was in everybody's team when the game first launched, 6.5 and got 2 assists. Don't get me wrong, the second one, Richarlison, was an absolutely unbelievable goal, and more to do with him, you would say. But Kudus, 2 assists, XA of 0.58 XA. There are these players that could be pretty good for the season, couldn't they?
They could be, although major caveat is like 1 game week samples are massively noisy. Like we won't look at this after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 and 7 and 8 and beyond. Even like, you know, even a 6 week game week sample would be quite small. But I think you're looking at Elliot Anderson, you're looking at Esteval, like they put up reasonable numbers. Esteval, obviously, minutes are a concern. Like we have to see that he's nailed, plays himself on the team. And with Chelsea, there's always going to be that risk of rotation, I think. Semenyo was incredible.
Yeah.
You know, he suffered racist abuse, and look, I don't know how the guy who gave him the racist abuse thought he wasn't going to get spotted because he was like in a wheelchair, and I don't, you know, like you're never getting away from that. I think it was absolutely terrible, but it seemed to really fire Semenyo up, and he was basically unplayable against Liverpool on Friday night. Coming on at that £7 million or just above a price point now, you're looking at the Bournemouth fixtures. I think after this week get really good, and I would have thought that. Looking at Bournemouth, maybe I would have been interested in, say, Evan Nilsson, but the way Semenyo played, he kind of really looked like he was very much the kind of talisman and focal point of the team. So for a wee slight bump over the kind of Kudus money, I think you're getting somebody who had a really good season last season and I think could really push on this season as well.
Oh, he's infuriating to own, though. He really is. He's got four in his last 2 games, hasn't he? Because he finished the season with 2 goals. But my God, he's infuriating to own. He can't finish. That's the problem. Obviously, he did really well in the last game, but it'd be interesting to see if he kicks on, because I think Bournemouth expected him to kick on last season more than he did. And he let them down a little bit, I think. But I think this year it'd be interesting to see if he carries this on. Obviously, he's not going to score 2 every game. But as Hibbo just said about first week and only 1 week samples being noisy, Calafiori is 5th on here. He had 1 shot, and it was the header to score against United when Bayindir had weak wrists and just basically gave it to him. So you can't look at this and think, oh yeah, those ones are standing out for me. But there's some interesting stats in here anyway. Looking at CBIT now as well. So these are the defenders that smashed it for defensive contributions this week. Some of them we were expecting. Some of them we really weren't expecting. So Van Dijk, 21 defensive contributions, the highest of the season so far, obviously 1 week in. Lacroix with 16. So all of these reached their 2 extra points. 8 Nori got 15. I was absolutely shocked by that. Quite a defensive performance, actually, which was surprising. Senesi, Tarkovsky got 15. I think Tarkovsky got it with like 30 minutes to spare. Ballard, who was the highest scoring player of the week. Saliba, who got them, who we basically said Arsenal defenders won't get them most of the season, but then obviously we didn't expect United to play the way they did. Vandenberg, Aina, who was the Forest defender nobody wanted, did get them. Byrne, Cash, Mitchell, my boy, Cher, Yoro, and Delict. Now, very, very interesting, Nacho, looking down this list at the players that we didn't expect to get it. 8 Nori. We were saying he could be absolutely brilliant, but he won't ever get them. If he can get these and also get some attacking returns as well, for 6 million at City, he could be your 2nd or 3rd City player, couldn't he?
Oh, mate, you've absolutely smashed it having him in Gameweek 1, honestly, and you were really bullish on him, obviously, prior to that. It's the sort of player that we're looking for, really, because I think defensive contributions are great. I do think, I'm not saying they're overhyped, but I don't think it should be the be-all and end-all whether you're deciding to buy a defender or not. But if you can get these players who are playing in a top 4 team, offer the attacking potential that we know he will do eventually. It's worth noting, like you said, didn't really have that kind of play that we're used to when he was at Wolves, a bit more reserved in his game. But I think there will be times where he is flying forward and they play a bit more of an inverted winger as opposed to someone like Doku off the left. So we'll be a bit hesitant for him bombing forward when Doku plays. But look, with this number right now, if this is consistent, again, give it 2, 3, 4 more game weeks, he is going to be incredible value at 6 million. And I think a lot of us are going to look at it and think, we just can't get there right now until a wild card. So you're probably just going to enjoy some lovely points.
Yeah, he does look. I mean, I was shocked at that, and he didn't just hit 10; he hit 15. So he did smash himself past it, which was awesome. It's one thing I didn't expect was I now watch games and I keep track of DEFCON as the games go on. I'm literally sat there on the app going, "Oh, here we go," and just watching it as it goes. But that's great fun. It's something that's added into the game that I didn't think it would. Hibbo, as you look down this list, is there anybody else that surprised you? It's surprising how many 4.5s can hit it as well, isn't it?
It's surprising how many 4.5s can hit it. Like, we're obviously looking here and we're seeing, say, Senesi at Bournemouth. Yeah, they were up against Liverpool, so like it's understandable that it was really like backs to the wall, and that kind of scenario was going to lead to lots of kind of defensive contributions. Tarkovsky obviously had it last night. against Leeds as well, although he's a 5.5. He'd been somebody that had been very much talked about in pre-season as being a bit of a DEFCON monster. And it's come to pass, like, they conceded the penalty late. If they had it cleaned, he probably would have got some bonus as well and got DEFCON. So it shows you the power of that, I think, as yourself and Nacho says about Aït-Nouri. But for me, I think the interesting one, and again, it's a wee bit cliche, it's top of the pops, it's Van Dijk. It's, he went out, he did 21, and it showed you how much attacking Bournemouth were doing for Van Dijk. They've cleared the ball 17 times. But we looked at Frimpong and we looked at Kjeerkees, and we talked about this in pre-season. They both came off just before the 60-minute mark.
Yeah.
I think it was a tactical mistake. It almost seemed as if Liverpool thought they had the game won. Then it tapped back towards Bournemouth in the balance, and then they had to kick on again. But those guys coming off and being substituted off, whereas Van Dijk is staying on and has a potential to nail down some CBIT actions. I think if it comes to buying a Liverpool defender, you're only buying Van Dijk. And I think that's nailing the head after this weekend. Like, you can't really look at those other two guys, because if they can come off at that point, they can rotate in 2 games' time. Bradley can come on, Robertson can come on. So I think this is really kind of nailed down the thinking around the best Liverpool defensive asset.
To be fair, the Frimpong one, I think he said that Frimpong said at half-time he was feeling his hamstring, I think.
Tightness, maybe?
Yeah. So I think he came off a bit, because I was shocked, because obviously Bradley wasn't even on the bench. But it was interesting watching those two come off. And like you said, Van Dijk's just sat there, absolutely smashing the defensive contribution. So we did talk about Van Dijk a lot, but obviously they did concede those 2 goals as well. So they have been a little bit shaky. But whether that changes with Gravenberch coming back, that could be a massive difference as well for them. Now, looking at the midfielders, though, that get DEFCON, wasn't so interesting in terms of the players that we wanted to get it. Now, I've already said Anderson and Bruno finished on 11, but the only players that got above 12, so got their extra 2 points, was Tavernier, who got 20, Tyler Adams, who got 19. You can see what Liverpool were doing against Bournemouth. Weaver for Brighton, and then we've got Andre for Wolves, Onana for Aston Villa, Odegaard, Moises Caicedo, who got the 12, Cullen, Stack, who is the Leeds midfielder, who I thought looked very good, got an assist as well, interestingly, and then Zubimendi for Arsenal as well. Nacho, apart from Anderson and Bruno, who didn't get it, but they're only 1 away, is there anybody here that you're thinking, well, I'll keep him on my watch list, because a lot of them I'm not that enamoured about, but there's 1 or 2 that could be interesting, isn't there?
I wish there was. I really wish there was. I'm just looking at the list right now, and like we said, we just got gems right now at 5.5 million. And as we mentioned, we got someone like Anderson, who is just incredible value right now and actually offers something in the final third. And then we got somebody like Randers, or however we pronounce it, who doesn't necessarily do anything in the defensive contributions, but more importantly, does the things that we actually want them to do. So we have to compare them to those players. It's silly not to. And I look at Tavernier, fantastic. He picks up these numbers, and I believe he was really good last season. So I don't think this is just like a one-off in this game. I think he will be pretty consistent. I'm not that convinced on any of these, to be honest with you. I think anybody that was wanting to go for a Caicedo, yeah, great, but you ain't getting anything other than 2 points each week alongside it. You mentioned Stack, at least. Personally, I don't have anything on that one, mate, so you might have to take the floor on that one. But Zubimendi, again, like, I just don't see anything there that excites me to go at 5.5 million when we can grab a 10 or an 8 in that Man City team right now.
Yeah, shout out to someone called Jared, who's in one of my group chats, who was talking about Statch before the season started and said he could be really good. His DEFCONs are really good, and he played really, really well Monday night. And he got the assist, and I think he had a shot from outside the box that was quite close as well. And obviously got his DEFCON, so he ended up with 8 points, I think it was. Little gems like that is what you can just obviously bring them in certain games. Leeds obviously played very well. I'm not sure whether I want to play him away from home, but I thought it was quite interesting. Hibbo, anybody on here or anybody that was close that you want to mention before we move on to some RobT projections?
No, in terms of the kind of attackers, like your midfielders and forwards, so no forwards. I think it's interesting to note that no forwards appeared on it. It was only midfielders. So, but looking at this sample, it's throwing up a lot of people in the kind of 5 range, 5.5 range. I'm going to be interested to watch this develop to see if anybody from 4.5 pushes themselves under the frame, because at the minute, like, spending 5 on, say, Stack as like a 5th midfielder doesn't really appeal to me, because as Nacho said, like we're looking at midfields. You can potentially spend 5.5 on Anderson, 5.5 on Reinders if you started with him. What's the appeal in effectively playing a 4-man midfield? Because if you had Stack, the reality is you're probably not going to start him every week. So I think that's the main takeaway from me. Caicedo, Cullen, guys like that. Zubimendi, they're effectively defensive midfielders. So you expect them to hit it. But I think ultimately the thrill is an assist or a goal or some kind of attacker in return to hit that really big number.
Yeah.
And those players don't really offer that. So I think it's a wait and watch and see, because I think the 5.5s that have emerged are looking good. Mahomey says in the chat, Josh King. Yeah. I do agree. Like maybe it is Josh King's season. If he stays in the side, there have been a bit of talk around the strikers at Fulham that Muniz could possibly go. If that materialises, maybe King's a starter for the season. Who knows?
Yeah. And is Josh King Norwegian or English? No one knows. Right, let's have a look at some RobT projections then. RobT, literally, these dropped just before we were about to stream, so we quickly shoved them in because we absolutely love these. Thank you, Rob. So at the moment then, the projected goals and clean sheet odds, if I just go through the teams to target, but if you wanted to have a bit of a closer look at the actual graphic, you can either go and follow him or you can have a look at this on the stream later on. So the teams to target at the moment, Arsenal are projected to get the highest projected goals against Leeds, 2.5. Man City are second with 2.35 against Spurs. Interesting, considering Frank's obviously just taken over and they kept a clean sheet. Chelsea against West Ham is 1.95. We're going below 2 now. Liverpool against Newcastle, 1.9, Bournemouth 1.9 against Wolves, and then we got Villa and Man United who are both above 1.6. In terms of clean sheets, we've got Arsenal who are the highest at 46%, then we've got Chelsea, Man City, Burnley, Bournemouth and Crystal Palace all above 30, with Brighton, Sunderland, Villa and Man United rounding it off there. Nacho, looking at these tables, I've mentioned them before. Arsenal top for projected goals, top for clean sheets. Surely you're tempted a little bit. Surely.
See, this is the thing, really. When you have one game in isolation, like this Leeds game, surrounded by really difficult fixtures, it is so important to just kind of like zoom out a little bit and just see what you're doing. Because some people could just play kind of like a very aggressive game where they just go transfer in game week 2, transfer in game week 3. I just don't love it personally. Now, of course, I would love a piece of the Arsenal attack, but are you going from Watkins to Gyökeres after seeing that performance against Man United? He may do fantastic. He might be the guy who gets the hat trick, but I think we also have to assume that Kai Havertz is going to be, it's going to be João Pedro Delap and it's going to be Gyökeres and Havertz. These are going to be the combinations where they all steal minutes off one another. And is anybody really going to go from penalty taking Cole Palmer against West Ham, who just conceded 3 goals, and downgrade into Saka, who might not even be on penalties himself, and then afterwards has Liverpool? Just don't really see it. So I think really it's defensively people might go, but then again, with their price points right now and a lot of people's teams' most expensive player being 5.5, I just don't see anybody going up to a 6 million like a Gabriel just for this one particular fixture. So I look at all the other games and think this is the week to roll a transfer. I just think it's very, very obvious with the fixtures that I'm looking at, the data that's around us. Liverpool 1.9 against Newcastle. I mean, yeah, but that could easily be less than that, I think, with the St. James's Park atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, Hibbo, carrying on that line, is it really, really hard to make a transfer in game week 2? Is it, especially with the fact Arsenal don't have nice fixtures after game week 2, and this is the least, I mean, not the least amount of data because that was last week, but it seems hard to make a transfer that you're going to know is going to work in game week 2, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think at this point in time, it's the part of the season where there's like the most uncertainty. You know, as fantasy managers, we're trying to work out who the best options are. We're trying to get a bit of a feel about team strength, who's improved, who's slipped away. And that's still a very much a work in progress. Now, I think we're looking at Arsenal. It's obviously a great fixture this week. Leeds were good against Everton, but they were at home. And I think it's going to be a very different story for Leeds on the road at the Emirates. You know, I think they'll be up against it. They maybe do have the potential to score a goal, but I think these numbers are bang right. Like, I do expect Arsenal to do well in both attack and defence. But I would like to go back to your original point. I think saving's prudent. You know, I think getting yourself up to 2 transfers, assessing your team for game week 3, remembering that, look, it's essentially a marathon, not a sprint. It's long ball. you can't really blow your season up in 2 weeks unless you've had 2 absolute stinkers. So, like, for me, I'm going for the role. I look at these numbers and I think it would be really exciting to be on a big PC Arsenal this week. I'm not, but I'm fine with it, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm happy enough to roll a transfer, hope for the best. Like, we're looking at the quotes that have come out. There's been some very kind of certain quotes at Gyökeres' own penalties.
Yeah.
They were on Twitter
Just
today.
one person though, wasn't it? One Swedish reporter, I think it was.
One Swedish reporter has reported that it's basically been agreed that Gyökeres' own pens. Yeah. Like, that's obviously yet to materialise, but we had been texting obviously midweek about this, or since that news broke, and it obviously damages Saka's appeal. More so than it improves Gyökeres' appeal, because we looked at him at the weekend. I was obviously very keen, very bullish on him. He looked as if he could take time to adapt to the league.
Just
the pace of it, just a bit. And Havertz is waiting on the wing. So, like, whether Havertz is going to regularly take 20, 30 minutes off him, or whether Havertz is eventually going to step up and come on for a game if he's not producing, both those things could be true. But I think if penalties pass Gyökeres' way, does it kill Saka as an asset? Potentially. And it would be kind of sad, but we're so wedded to pens on the idea of penalties that when a player loses them, I think inevitably we cannot erase that player from our memory. And hopefully it isn't the case with Saka, but it sounds like it could happen.
Yeah, I didn't see many encouraging things from Gyökeres' debut. Don't get me wrong, I think he worked hard. I think he did what he kind of should have done, worked the channels, things like that. But I didn't see an awful lot that kind of encouraged me to move from Watkins to Gyökeres in game week 2, which I wanted Watkins just in case Gyökeres looked unbelievable, basically. And I thought, oh God, I want to make that move. But even then, you're making a move for 1 week because, like we said, the next 2 fixtures aren't that kind. It'd be interesting to see who scores the goals for Arsenal this year. It really will, because if Gyökeres doesn't really work and Saka's off pens as well and all that kind of stuff, it'd be interesting to see who scores the goals for him. So, yeah, 2.5 for them. Will they score 3? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. Right, let's have a look at some Comm Teams. So, Nacho, going to hand over to you. I've got the OG team on the left, and I've got the new community team on the right. 18 points difference between them. My goodness.
It's massive, isn't it? It really is. And kind of starting where they left off last season, the OG team, obviously Matt leading the way there with 59 points. It's just becoming a bit inevitable right now, isn't it? And I feel like for us, it's just so important that we show we are made of something this season, boys, because they started well. Matt's team, the OGs have done well. And looking at their team right now, Sanchez, Munoz, Milenkovic, Van der Ven, really strong midfield. They've got that 5.5 million Randers, and then Watkins and João Pedro. The balance that they've got's good, and they hit the money with Randers. So they're ahead of me. I need you two to beat them in these opening few weeks, and I'll claw it back later. But what is our glimmer of hope is the new boys on the block. 41 points. I haven't heard from Brian in a few days, so maybe that's why. But
I'll check up on it.
Yeah, I feel like they got a little bit lucky. Juve away from home against Sunderland. I don't think anybody anticipated that. And Sells, obviously, with the double Forest defence getting wiped out. So otherwise, familiar faces in the team. And the team looks like one of those that could very easily do well next week. So, yeah, I think we've got a bit of an opposite ends of the spectrum here. Haven't got any intel on what they're planning on doing, but what I'm seeing right now with the teams, I'll be astonished if a transfer does get made on both of these. And I think they're going to be rolling their transfers, I anticipate. But I'm glad that one of these guys failed, because we needed that. We needed that little bit of glimmer of hope for ourselves here. So, yeah, we hopefully... None of the people that I'm there to, chat, but we're here to win, aren't we? End of the day, and that's it.
Time.
So yeah, I'm glad to see the 41, and we'll see how we do, boys. But yeah, it's a good start. It's a good start for the OGs.
I mean, I spoke to Dan Dave at Fest, and he would not stop going on about the fact that his Comm team has beaten us 2 years in a row. That they are basically up there with Ben Crellin and Harry for their consistency since they've been FPL managers.
Wow.
Honestly, I had to drink so much to drown it out. So much.
Was he drinking? Was he?
Yeah, cool.
Drinking?
He loves a cider. But yeah, no. To be fair, we finished top 100k each year, and they're still beating us. What can we do? Let's have a look at some of our bus teams then. So this is my bus team going into the weekend. I've got Sells in goal. I've got Richards for his debut for me. Murillo and 8 Nori at the back. Then I've got Anderson, Salah, Palmer as my captain at the moment, with Wirtz and Reinders in the middle. Then I got Pedro and Watkins up top. I've got Porro on the bench. Steve and Dubravka on the bench for their lovely home game against Sunderland. And then I've got Gu on the bench as well. Now, I don't like my team this week. I really don't like my team this week. I'm looking at it and thinking, if I can get away with a 5 million game week rank, I would be quite happy. I'm not sure about captaincy. I mean, I was going to ask you about captaincy, Nacho, because Palmer was the one I planned on when I was doing my captaincy matrix before the season started, and obviously not having Haaland. If I did have him, I'd captain him. But without Haaland, Palmer seems the next man up. I'm not loving it.
No. I mean, I weirdly kind of fancy the Palace Forest draw a little bit. I kind of like that. You could come in really clutch there. But with the captaincy decision, I think a lot of people will have the same dilemma. Some might go a bit rogue with Watkins away against Brentford. But for you, mate, yeah, Palmer was poor in game week 1. He really wasn't influencing the game. But West Ham, if we're seeing what we saw with that back 3 as well, I think Palmer could get a bit of joy. I don't think they're as well drilled as what we saw with Palace with that back 3. So, I think the Palmer captaincy is probably where I'm leaning right now. And I think you're in a good spot in terms of your defence. I think there could be some clean sheets there.
You say that, though. Benching Porro.
Yeah, and we saw a glimmer of that at PSG, didn't we, where he played as a right wing back. And we could see that implemented once again. But I probably would still start the ones that you've got ahead of Porro.
Yeah, makes sense to me. What about your team then, Nacho? So, Nacho, you've got, I'm assuming rolling. Talk us through it.
Yeah, the plans to roll, I think it always was. It really would have had to have been like a significant injury to a key player to make any sort of transfer. So just reading out for those on the podcast, Sanchez between the sticks, Porro, Murillo, and we got Steve, of course, at home against Sunderland. Less confident about that one after what Sunderland done to West Ham, but I have got Anderson on the bench, worst case scenario. Midfield 5 of Dewsbury Hall, goddamn, Salah, Palmer, Rodgers, and Bruno Fernandes, with Pedro and Watkins up top. And my captain is currently on Mo Salah, but I will say, if you told me right now to lock in my team, I think I probably would shift that to Cole Palmer. One thing I will say is Friday night game. Do you want to back the early kickoff? That is the only thing. But I'm hoping to see a little bit more from Everton in that Brighton game. And to be honest with you, the week, similar to game week 1, is going to be completely dictated by Aston Villa. I really do need them to perform with the double up that I've got on attack. Otherwise, I think it could be another painful game week for myself. But I think the team pretty much picks itself.
I'm on a flight Friday night, and so I've got to lock in an hour before the flight takes off. And so I won't see any of that game. So I will land to find out how Palmer, captain, and Pedro did. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Yeah,
I don't like that.
I'm not a fan. Hibbo, talk us through your team. You're on Salah cap.
Kind of undecided at the minute. I'll just start back to front. So I've got double Burnley defence. Looks very attractive, doesn't it? Dubravka and Steve. I've got Anderson and Porro. I think Porro, it's a hard game, but he offers a bit of attacking potential, as Nacho said. He could always cream an assist or some kind of return, which makes him worth playing. But I'm not entirely happy with my defence this week. In midfield, I've got Reinders, Palmer, Bruno, Wirtz, and at the moment, Salah captain. Captaincy for me is undecided, but it's going to be a flip between Salah and Palmer. I was looking at West Ham. They were obviously terrible in the first week. Newcastle were a wee bit better. I could change that about. I don't think there's much in it. I think if you've got Haaland this week, you go for him. I think if you've got an Arsenal player like Saka, maybe you go for them if you have them in your team. But this one's a wee bit of a kind of coin flippy type situation, I think, for everybody at the minute. Up top, Watkins used to play for Brentford, and I think if my memory serves me correct, he's got a very good record against Brentford. They were terrible in week 1, so happy enough for that. They happen. Thiago, he showed us game week 1, he's got pants. Wassa has basically go on social media, Dirk and Brentford. I
Yeah.
think he changed his profile picture just to like a black square, a black circle or something, and he's deleted all his Brentford photographs. He obviously doesn't want to be there. Thiago's obviously going to stay in the team. He's obviously got spot kicks. So, look, happy enough for now. And then on the bench, I've got Sanchez, Agbadou, Gui, and Romero. So, my back line looks a wee bit like Crimewatch, and up top looks a wee bit like Baywatch. So we'll go with that, and we'll see how it goes this week. Hopefully no 5 million game week rank.
Fingers crossed.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Nothing wrong with that.
Fingers crossed. Sorry,
Oh,
Nacho.
sorry.
It's all right. You'll be up with us next week, mate. So, chat, we've just about finished there, but you can chuck in some questions now for a bit of a Q&A. Obviously, going into game week 2, we've tried our best not to draw too many conclusions from one game week's worth of data, but we did also have the knee-jerk wheel, so it's kind of like two halves of the stream, isn't it, which is quite nice. FPL Amateur says, would you guys bench boost Dubravka, Richards, Diouf and Kudus? What do you think, Nacho?
Dubravka,
Richards, Diouf and Kudus. Not loving the fixtures there.
Nah. I would just hold off. I think there'll be plenty more opportunities for you.
Yeah. Stephen Harker says, what about Watkins for captain, Hibbo?
Could be an outside shot. I think we saw that Brentford were particularly poor, and I think he's an okay option. We don't know if he's got pens or what, and I think that's probably what brings him down behind the like a Salah and Palmer, who are both muds. They get extra points for a goal, potential for a clean sheet, etc. So I think on paper and on expected numbers, Watkins would be behind. But if you like a punt, do it.
Yeah. Mahomey, Andy, are Man United ever going to win 5 games in a row so that fan can get a haircut? I think if we
you seen his hair?
If I know,
Crazy.
if we'd have won against Arsenal, that would have been our first time winning 2 in a row under Amorim, I think. So 5 in a row. We're gonna win. We're gonna win more games this year. We're gonna score more goals this year. But 5 in a row, I'm not sure about that.
Honestly, that guy.
The poor bloke. I know. Honest FPL question: how long would you wait on Palmer before considering transferring him out if he continues poor form of second half of last season? What do you think, Nacho?
I think it comes down to the right window. So, for example, West Ham and Fulham back to back, while Arsenal have tricky games and Liverpool have tricky games. I think you probably wait until game week 4 and then reassess, because there will be some windows then where you can go on to other options. I think it's more of a case of who can you go to rather than I just want to get rid of Palmer.
No. Nacho, full of ham, says, what's your favourite gravy?
Thick and beefy.
Wow. Okay. Someone clip that.
Saucy.
Yeah. AT17 says, Fernandez game week 3 triple captain differential versus Burnley. Do you know what? I'm going to say this now. I am really, really tempted to bring one of Cunha or Mbumo in game week 3. I feel like that's going to be the game. The only problem is their next 2 fixtures are horrendous after that. So that's the only thing putting me off. But I think one of those 2 is going to be better value than Bruno this season. I'm going to say that now. Saw some very good things at the weekend with them. Forster says, no Haaland or Salah. Do I captain Palmer? Do I ship Palmer for Saka so I can captain him, Hibbo?
Potentially, if you really feel that Palmer's dead weight in your team and that you can't trust him with a captain's armband away to West Ham, then maybe do it. It personally wouldn't be for me. I think what Nacho said, there's a couple of games here. There's West Ham, there's Fulham, there's Brentford. You have to give him the opportunity, I think, to prove himself. But if his individual doesn't really fancy him for an armband option, move him on.
Yeah, fair. Right, and then last one was Wayne Robinson. Do I start Anderson of Fulham or Porro this week, Nacho?
I think it has to be Anderson. I'm going to go for.
You sounded like Agent Smith then. Anderson.
Anderson.
Rodney Burns.
Anderson is the choice for me.
Lovely stuff. Right, thank you so much, people in the chat. We had over 600 people watching tonight. We appreciate all of you watching. We appreciate all of you that are watching after the fact, and we also appreciate all of you listening on the pod as well. Hope you enjoyed yourself this evening. Nacho, always lovely having you on. Game week 1 in the books. Obviously, you're looking for game week 2 to be a little bit better.
Yep, I am hoping for a good game week, but again, I'm not getting ahead of myself like you two. I'll just take another average week, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, good man. Hibbo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Obviously, you're just hoping to continue like you are and just spamming bonus points after the game's finished.
Yeah, 61 points, top of SCOUTCAST. Things couldn't get any better for me right now. So go on to game week 2, and hopefully we can build on that. And I'll still be top next week. Yeah, brilliant.
There's been people at home who have just had their ears blown off by Hibbo going as close to the mic as possible, thinking he's on bloody the boat of love doing his radio station. Right, thank you so much. What was that called? Pirate Radio or something, wasn't it? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. We hope to see you again next week, and we hope your arrows are green. Thank you very much. Bye bye.